My name is Inhi Cho Suh. I'm the Vice President of Big Data, Integration and Governance, which is part of IBM's overall software group, but also overall IBM sort of strategy around this space. The most challenging aspects of implementing a big data within the enterprise is actually twofold. One is really around skills. Often I get questions among senior leaders to say, do I really have the right skills in the organization to be able to quickly stand up the set of technologies and architectures required to drive the business objective? And the second one, which is an interesting one, is actually where should I start? Picking a project that's going to have meaningful return to the business. The insights that we've gathered actually by engaging over 1,000 clients around the world was that clients really start around 5 areas. One was, how do they fundamentally transform the way they engage and enrich sort of the customer engagement with their clients? So drive revenue, drive profit, engage and increase client satisfaction. The second was really around optimizing their infrastructure and optimizing their processes as well. And this is because of the amount of machine-generated data. So whether it's around cost savings or sensing like new data sources from devices and assets, that's high growth area. The third is around IT infrastructure, the availability of cloud as a delivery platform, as well as the ability of applying new types of multi-parallel processing techniques. Really give you an advantage that didn't exist even 5 years ago, quite honestly, for most IT organizations. The fourth is around transforming the office of the finance. And last is really rethinking kind of, is there new value to the data that you haven't thought about before in your organization? And how do you begin to monetize it, but do that while ensuring the security and privacy and governance around that data set in order to protect your clients? One of the questions I've been getting recently is around the intersection of cloud and big data, and whether or not cloud right now has the full spectrum of capabilities to handle data given the sensitive nature of data, the size of it, the complexity around it. And I actually tell clients it's a mix, that you should actually start to implement some elements of cloud techniques, meaning specific types of analytic workloads, specific types of data and infrastructure choices on the cloud. However, if you're highly, let's say, if your data is highly sensitive and you're in industries that are highly regulated, you really have to think about how is that data managed, who has access to it, what are the governance controls around it, and many instances in those unique scenarios, the data really does have to be on-premise, managed in a certain way, can't leave certain geographic boundaries, i.e. a city or a country. And what you can do is think creatively. Are there ways for you to capture, for example, the algorithms and the analytic models that you want to be able to apply across all of your metadata assets that may be located in terms of raw form in specific data centers around the world? So you push down the compute capabilities around those analytic techniques in much more of an on-prem style, but the analytic models could actually be maintained in the cloud. There may be some workloads that you actually start in the cloud. We've had a couple clients actually want to stand up some of the analytic services and data storage services in the cloud today, actually leveraging capabilities like JSON or NoSQL types of data stores, as well as even Hadoop in the cloud. Now, in those instances, it may be data sets that are uniquely developed because they're entering a field around online applications or mobile transactional applications. And depending on the workload type, it makes sense to do that. So I tell clients you should actually get very comfortable experimenting on understanding what set of data workloads that you actually want to start on the cloud versus what you maintain on-prem, and think through the movement of it too, right? How do you mask and understand sensitive information as it's static as well as dynamic in motion? How do you think through different types of techniques to understand who's accessing it, the auditing and logs of that? How do you understand kind of new elements around security features also in the cloud? Because when you start to do that, you think through, okay, all of the parameters tied to security, but access and multi-tenancy requirements and performance levels. So I would say for most clients, get on board with a hybrid thought around your data and cloud. When you hear the term big data, it can sometimes feel overwhelming in that it only applies to large enterprises, but I would tell you it's actually quite amazing to see mid-sized companies go through a tremendous amount of transformation or rethink the way they think and do business with applying big data. I'll share a recent conversation I had with the senior leader of this small regional railroad transportation company. And they said to me, actually, I don't know that we actually need big data because we don't have a lot of data. We're in an industry which is fairly long-standing, and we ship goods via railway. So I said, okay, so what are some of your business objectives this year? And the senior leader said, well, historically we would have thought about IT optimization and workload consolidation, but most recently our business leaders and our board of directors asked us about, how could we generate revenue? So how do you generate revenue is what I asked them, and they said, well, we generate revenue through intermodal transportation, meaning converting goods that are shipped, let's say, via highway trucks to railway. This is a mid-sized shipping company at the end of the day. And how do you target and drive revenue? Well, typically our marketing department, manages a customer database. We sometimes purchase customer lists. We marry that based on segmentation and profiles, and then do targeted marketing campaigns and efforts, or direct mail tactics, or telesales activities. I asked them, how much do you spend on something like that? We spend probably a couple $1 million to generate our leads, because it's really a B2B and sometimes often a B2B2C scenario. And I said, would you like to do that kind of in a big data way? Well, what does that mean? So one of the things that we did was we said, let's look at your customer database and profile of that data. Let's take a small set of that, and let's also take into consideration a couple external data sources, including a public social data source that had a combination of blogs and Twitter feeds. We looked at LinkedIn, which looked at also professionals and kind of profiles of roles. We also did some algorithm development and did a mapping and applied some new graph tools to look at the transportation and shipping of all types of goods from the time it's agriculturally developed or manufactured, and actually did a mapping of shipment of all goods, perishable and non-perishable, to map out which companies were paying for supply and distribution of shipped goods. And using a very small set of data, but a very progressive way, in essentially 10 weeks, we were able to develop for this medium-sized company a very targeted list of 20 customers that they could proactively call to and get essentially a very quick telesales campaign, a response back from at least 10 of them that asked for a proposal back, all under 10 weeks. Historically, that would have been, millions of dollars that they've spent instead of a couple $100,000. And it would have taken a much longer sales and marketing sort of vetting process to ensure that you could actually target. It was transformative for them because they realized culturally it wasn't about the size of the data set. It was really thinking differently about how to solve the problem. The most transformational technologies that I've seen and have had the opportunity to actually witness transformations within the industry is around what we call real-time and context computing. So operating much more at the pace at which businesses not only operate, but completely transforming the way you think about it. So one of the, I would say, highest volume of data that's generated is from machine data. And think about something as simple as the healthcare industry. A single patient in an intensive care unit can generate 100,000 data points per second. 100,000 data points per second. Think about the professionals that are involved. You've got doctors, nurses, professional medical staff, and they're trying to make sense of all of that noise and all those sounds and all those signals and beeps that are going off. And imagine the ability to process all of that in real time as the data sets are being generated in terms of its raw form, and then being able to quickly diagnose whether or not a patient is trending in a very positive way or negative way, pre or post-surgical procedures. That has the ability, what I call it, it's almost like a superpower, similar to the movie The Matrix, if you remember. there was this notion of bullet time, right? Where you could slow down the camera and almost see the bullet move. I think about stream computing giving doctors, physicians, and any other professionals, regardless of their industry, the ability to stop time or slow time down in order to be able to do new things that they weren't able to do. So being able to operate much more in real time, make sense of the data around you in all forms, being able to put non-obvious data sets and relationships of non-obvious data sets together, and then be able to not only understand that, but then take action in it, and then do that in an automated fashion in milliseconds with a high degree of confidence is transforming not only the healthcare industry, but I would say oil and energy and utilities, gas, the entire connected car scenarios, understanding geolocation. So to me, the hottest area is really around real-time stream processing and computing. The next phase of cloud, I think, is going to become much more creative than the current phase. Because right now, I feel like a lot of emphasis is on cloud infrastructure, consolidation, workload management, virtualizing your server and network, virtualizing your application sets. What excites me most about the next generation of services is really about delivering new digital services. And what I mean by new digital services is you've got to put on the lens of the business and the lens of the consumer and lens of what's possible in terms of the way we interact. So a good example is, think about when you think through what does an individual mean. Today, most companies do customer segmentations, and it's based on either micro or macro segmentations capturing traditional profiles. Oh, this person is of this geography, address, size, location, date, salary, comp, history, a certain stage in life, rather than looking at how many personas does an individual actually have, and what personas have similar likes and dislikes. A data set we discovered recently was in working with an insurance company and also an online matching dating service company, was that just because you put a real-time offer in front of someone that may have fit your segmentation profile doesn't mean that psychographically they're of the same mindset to actually take that offer. But if you start to pair up data sets from different types of industries, you start to get a better picture of the personality of an individual and a whole person for many reasons, not just in terms of personal interest, but also you see location type services, i.e. people that have the same affinity for certain devices like to play certain games on those devices. There's a high propensity of those types of activities. Or location services, really looking at not only to do traffic and transportation management of digital services online and monitoring all of that, but also monitoring activities like consistency and sharing of knowledge through those various tools. I think about the transformation around cloud and the next wave of digital and data services, much like the way I think about the transformation around the internet. Initially, you had a very small set of vendors that had the ability to publish content. Once those tools became very pervasive for anybody, meaning an individual person, regardless of age or background or skill, could start to publish and create content of their own, it completely transformed the entire industry and markets and the way we live. So I look at digital services, data services, understanding content, refining that content, thinking about a data marketplace. Imagine if you could shop for data as easily as you shop for apps. It's completely different in terms of the way we can live, interact, engage, impact all aspects of our society and economy.